Shapes. Why? Because. In this session, I will try to tell you almost everything I know about shapes, which might be too much for you, but I'm sure you will learn some new things. So first, I just explain what shapes are and how they work, the very simple way. And if you still don't understand, you can stop our chart. It's okay with me? And maybe that's a good thing that you stop our chart if you don't understand shapes, for both of us. I'm so mean. Creating shapes then, how to create them, how to use them, and then how to render them with some little tricks and how we use it in our chart, those tricks. Because I'm sure that no one knows about shapes morphing. That's something I invented, the term. You know shape morphing? I know shape morphing. Sipke knows everything. Do you know how to create a strongly typed shape?
Yeah, you showed me last week.
What? Strongly typed shape? Okay, maybe I show you. Do you know how to...
Show us.
No, wait. I have something else. I thought. Yeah. Oh, crap. Let me think. Yes, I also showed you last 2 weeks ago. Shape. No, shape morphing. No. I don't talk about interfaces. No, okay. You're wrong. Okay, he doesn't know about shape morphing. I'll show you. After we'll say he knows. Shapes. It's beautiful. Okay, it's rendering everything. So what is a shape? A shape is a dynamic data model. It's a view model. A view model, but a dynamic view model. This is here to render this is representing the content to be rendered. And it's represented as a dynamic object. And this can be rendered using two methods. First method is using file templates, the one you know is using CSHTML files. We call them shape templates. And another way to render shapes is using shape methods, using the shape attribute. Okay? And I will show you how to do that and how it works. What's common with all shapes is that they all inherit from the base class named shape. That's normal. And there is no strong typing because they are dynamic models. No strong typing means it's an issue because you don't know what you can type. You have to guess. And that's usually a big issue. Shape tracing is helping with that, but documentation is also helping, if there were. So you have to copy-paste some existing code. Demonstration. I start slowly. So how to I can call someone. Okay. What's funny? So demonstration. I will show you the body part. Oh, sorry, body part. .cshtml. Where is it? Okay, I won't search for it. I will take it where it's from. Common views, body. Where is the body part? Oh, it must, okay. Parts, common, body. Okay, so this file. This one is very simple. It's taking the current model. Model in ASP.NET MVC is the object which is given to the view. And in this case, it's a shape. And because we don't define the type of the model, which in MVC is done using something like that, model and the type, for instance, string, because we don't define it, by default in ASP.NET MVC, it's a dynamic object model. And then whenever I will call a property, there is no strong typing because it can't know what it is. he can just guess, and this is what is common on an object, but here I know it's HTML. So it will just get the property HTML from the model. And model here is a shape. It's just an object with some properties, but properties that you can't know. There is no list of those properties because they are dynamic. We can add anything. I could say just after model.foo equals bar, and it will work. Because it's a dynamic object, I can add and get whatever I want on it. Well, if I try to get something which doesn't exist, it will fail. But here it's just like this. Another example of how to use a shape. So this is on a file template, and other examples are taken from classes in Orchard. Any class in Orchard can have, as long as it's a high dependency, can have a method which is decorated with the shape attribute. By writing that, I'm saying that this method will now be able to render a shape of the same name. Okay? So in this class, for instance, we got a bunch of shape methods to render shapes of the same names. Okay? And this one, for instance, will get some very common one like list or pager, things like that. They are defined by code. So you got two ways of defining shapes in Orchard: creating file templates or creating shape methods. Okay? We will see later in a few next slides that this can be anything. It's just two kind of implementation. I will show you which ones. So just note that there is no strong typing. This is an issue. So this is very simple. You should all know this, I hope. Now how to create shapes, because we saw how to use them, now how to create them. Shapes all inherit from the shape class, the shape-based class, but you don't want to create a new something which inherits from a shape-based class, or try to do a new shape. Because if you do that, you will not trigger all the events that are useful in Orchard to dynamically update, alter those shapes. This is also why we have dynamic objects, because if we have events saying, oh, a shape has been created, anyone could add a new property to it. And if you define a strongly typed object model first, you can't add more than what is in the shape, in the strongly type, in the strong type, the static type. So shapes are dynamic objects, and using a custom factory for shapes, you will allow anyone to register to events, using always the same factory. So in Orchard, there is a iShapeFactory service, which is supposed to define what a shape factory needs to do. And there is a default implementation which is called the default shape factory. And you see it just has a method, or one or two, called create. So this shape factory can create a shape of type shape type. And the default implementation implements that, but also has more features that lets us create shape more easily. So we'll see those syntactic sugars. And on top of that, the default shape factory will trigger some events that we can register on to customize those shapes. Customize or do some nice things around that. So like if you have a way to intercept every time a shape is created, you could do something like the shape tracing to trace that a shape has been created and add some metadata and render it on the front end. That's how we do for the shape tracing. I will show you. And obviously, you never try to resolve the iShapeFactory because it would be cumbersome. We have, in all Orchard views, a property named new, which is an instance of an iShapeFactory, actually the default shapefactory. So from Orchard views, we just use new. Okay? This is a shapefactory. And on new, there is a create method, but there are other syntactic sugars that I will show you right now. How to create and render shapes. So if I go to the layout.cs HTML file, just to play with shapes, I will go in the content zone, if I find it, here. Okay, before the content zone, I make some space here. And I will show you how to use the new property. So the new property is a shape factory. If I say dot, it does nothing, because if I look at that, oh, well, I need to do something like this because it's some code. Code. I know someone who will be happy. New is here I nothing. Why? Because it's also a dynamic object. I do F12 on this just to see where it's defined. It's defined in the web view page, which is the base class for every orchard view. It's defined in the web config. And this one is just a dynamic object. And this returns, you see, the shape factory, which is a property of type iShapeFactory, which is resolved when it's requested. So technically, it's just iShapeFactory implementation, but returned as a dynamic. Okay? This is very important because actually the default ShapeFactory class, which is the concrete instance that we will get, is, you see, implementing a composite, but it's just a shape mechanism, and overrides the try invoke member and some other dynamic methods. No, just the try invoke member. And this one is just intercepting every time you call a specific method on the object, and does something else than calling a method, because it doesn't have the method. It's just calling the create method with the name of the method you call. So let me show you. The idea is that when you say new dot product as a method, this method doesn't exist, okay, on the display shape factory, but it will be intercepted. The call will be intercepted and substituted by a call to create, which is a concrete method, with the name of the called method. Okay? So actually doing new product is equivalent as doing new dot create product. Okay, this is the same thing. But that's where dynamics are very interesting, because you can intercept what users do with those objects and change the behavior. That's what Clay was about, and now is integrated as pure static code inside a class. Okay? So for instance, this code might not have been here before Clay. Well, before Clay was removed. Now it's provided by this one. So new product will actually then create a shape, and we can call it product. It's an object. Okay? And it will be a dynamic object. Okay? And then what we can do, because it's a dynamic object, is assign some properties like KitKat. Yes. Product.price equals 1.5. Okay? And I can assign any property, any type I want. Then if I want to display it, I just call display product, and we'll see what display does just after. And actually it will try to find a template, somehow a shape method or a file template to render this shape, which is of type product. And if I run this, what will happen? Sipke knows, but we won't ask him because he's not listening. So what will happen? I changed the dashboard? Seriously? Oh. Well, let's go in the admin. No, well, no, let's move it. Okay, so this is this one. So yes, you're right, it will fail. And it's not a null reference, whatever, it's the shape was not found. Okay? Orchard exception, shape type product not found. Because we say display it, but it couldn't find any template or shape method to render it. So we have two solutions here. First one is to create, I will do it through here, document. I can create a file, product. It's not case sensitive, just in case you always wondered. I also wondered at some point, and I found the code. and it's not case sensitive because when the shape will be found, they will all be lowercase. So if I edit this file and I say foo, now it will find the shape template and render it. And it will render it with the shape object we are using as the model, which means I can say render model.name and render model.price. Okay, because those are two properties on the shape I'm passing as a model. And if I render it like this, okay? So that's how shapes work. You can create them using a shape factory, which is the new property in the views, and you can display them using the display method, which is shape helper. And this shape helper will know more about it. Next slide. After, but first, just a quick note of on the shape. What you will find in all shapes on top of the properties you had is all the properties of the class shape, because they all inherit behind the scene from the shape class. So those dynamic objects which are created are instances or sub-instances of the shape class. And on this shape class, you got a metadata property, which is very important, we'll see why, of type shape metadata. You got an ID, which is the ID to use in the HTML, in an HTML tag. So if you want to render your shape as an HTML tag, you should use this ID. And having this here lets any module intercept a shape event and assign the ID, expecting that you will use it to render it. And classes, again, for the CSS classes, attribute for CSS attributes. Items is a list of dynamic objects that you can attach to a shape, like sub-shapes, sub-children of a shape. And those are shapes. So you could also have children of those children. So a shape can be a hierarchy of shapes. It's a composite of shapes. A shape is a composite of shapes. And we'll see why. And to add elements to those items, you could say items.add, or you can just say add directly and optionally pass a position. So you could organize your sub-shapes by position. And also add range, and getEnumerator will list all the items. Shape metadata is very important, has lots of information on the shape itself, the type of the shape. So if you get an object, a dynamic object, and you want to know the type of shape it is, you just do shape.metadata.type. Display type is optional, it depends where you got the shape from. If you got it from a content item, it will show you which display type is used for the, but it's never used. Forget display type, forget placement source, is just used for placement. Forget prefix, what you care about here is alternates. Alternates is a list of alternate shapes that could be used to, or alternate templates that could be used to render this shape. We'll see that later. Two important things here are on-displaying and on-displayed. When you have a shape, you can register some events for when they will be displayed and before and after. And we'll see that also later. Just to let you know that those classes are very important and you might need to go to them sometimes. So now I will show you how to use strongly typed shapes. It's not possible unless you can do it, okay? And Sipke, look at that. Because some people had asked, is it possible to have strongly typed shapes? I said, no, always. But yes, it is possible, actually. So demonstration is here. So the idea is that based on a hidden feature in the shapes logic, I will go to the body part driver. So I will explain you later how driver works and render shapes. So a driver returns shapes, and in this body part driver, which returns the shape body, which is used here, 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 and here. There is a return here, shape helper, okay, dot parts command body. So this one will also create a new shape, and will assign a property HTML to that. But it will be a dynamic object. What I want to do is return a strongly typed class. So I will create this class at the end of the file, because it's easier, I will call it public class body part shape, okay? And I assume it has to inherit from shape, because that's the contract. And I will give it a property of type HTML string, which I will call HTML, because currently this is what will be given to the dynamic shape, but I want it to be strongly typed. And here, instead of returning this thing, as I told you, we don't want to do a return new body part. Antoine, you're talking too loud. Body part shape. But your English improved a lot. Instead of returning that, you know why I can't instantiate it like that? I need to go to use the shape factory. So this is the same code as with this. Okay, let's do it like that. Var shape equals, and I will do that. And instead of calling this like that, I will call the real create method, okay, which is a concrete method on the shape factory. And is it? No, this is not a shape factory. So, sorry. This is the type of the shape we want. Well, sorry, the shape type, but the concrete class we want to use is this thing. So there is a hidden code path in the shape construction, which says that if you give me a type as a parameter, not a name parameter, but as a parameter, the first one, I will use this one to create the concrete shape. So you do that, and the result is an instance of this. So the shape here will be a body part shape. And then after, we can do shape.html equals, what was it? I should have saved, so what was the property here? Okay, new HTML string of body text. This is what we want as the value. Okay, this. And then I can return the shape. Okay, let me compile it. Okay, and now in the parts common body file, but using dots, parts.common.body. Okay. Instead of saying we get a, no, not this one. This one. Instead of saying we get a dynamic object, no, it's no more a dynamic object now. Now we'll get a body part shape. This one. And now I can have .html. So it's just an example with the body part, but it works with anything. It might work. If it doesn't, I have some notes. It will work. I can call Sipke because it's there, and it doesn't work. So. You inherit from shapes, not shape. That's the body part shape. Inheritance? There is inheritance. Shapes. I inherited from shapes. Oh, that's why. Okay, thank you. That might be it, actually. Yeah, thank you, it worked. So you see now, so this is how you can get strongly typed. So Sipke, did you know it?
Well, I knew it, but I didn't remember.
Thank you. And I trust you because it happens to me a lot. Like, I knew some things, and then 3 months after, I'm like, forgot. Just to show you where this is, if you go to the default shape factory, the create method here, no, it's not in this one, is it? Yes, this is this one. You see, it's looking for all the parameters in the method call of the create. And I passed a type. I could have passed named values like HTML colon and the value, but I passed a type directly. And the question is, if the first positional parameter that you pass me is a type, then we'll use it as the base type. Otherwise, we'll use a new shape instance, okay? That's the trick. You need to go into the code to see that. That's why there is no need for documentation, because everything is in the code. And it's even better, because the documentation couldn't tell you that if it was null, it will be otherwise. No, so, so that could be very useful. So this is one example of what you could use it for. And I won't touch it because it works. Yeah, that's what I wanted to show. So now, going back to the slides, and I will explain you, I explained this in Santa Monica too, but it's very important, how a content item is displayed when you hit a page. How come all those things come into one block and show an element? So what actually happens is that the BillDisplay method on the, did I miss a slide? I missed this one. You didn't see this one. Rendering shapes. Yeah, but it's OK. So just because I use display, but I'll explain you what it was. So you saw iShape factory. And this one, the display helper, is an object to render shapes. So we saw how to create them. And to render, it's a display helper instance. And this display helper instance is in views called display. Okay? That's why we say display something. It will have the logic to render, to find the templates for a shape and render it in HTML. And this one also has some syntactic sugars that we will see. It's also a dynamic object because we intercept the method calls and do specific things. So what happens is this object display helper has a BillDisplay method, which contains everything for rendering. BillDisplay method is a method which will go over all the content handlers with one goal to render a content shape, so a shape of type content. Static type, a well-known string named content, not something else. So to do that, it will go over all the content handlers implementation. A content handler implementation is a class which implements iContentHandler and have a set of methods to implement. And everything you have in your orchard modules which implement content handlers will be called by the BillDisplay in order to render a content shape. If you have developed lots of modules, you might never have done any implementation of iContentHandler directly because you are usually using something which inherits from that. For instance, a driver. So if I take the body part driver, for instance, you inherit from content part driver. This is an iContentHandler implementation because if I go up into the hierarchy, this one inherits from content part driver of T, which inherits from which is an iContent part driver, which is BillDisplay. Well, yeah, there is no iContentHandler at the top for this one because there is a iContentHandler which will take those iContent part driver. But in the end, it's the same. You could also have BillDisplay on iContent. I will show you part handler. No, iContentHandler. iContentHandler. Yes, this one is the root of all the events. Also, you see BillDisplay. So this one will be called by the BillDisplay helper, and the BillDisplay here will call all the drivers too. You could implement this one or implement a driver just to return some shapes to take part of the content rendering. So just remember, BillDisplay is called from the content manager, which will implement it in the BillDisplay helper, calls every content handlers, and each of them will return a shape or not, and those shapes will be used to render another content shape. And what happens is that all the shapes given by the content handlers are placed into the content shape. So let me show you how it works. Maybe you will understand better because yeah. So I go to the default content manager, and there is a BillDisplay method. There is a BillDisplay method. BillDisplay. Okay, so this one will get the content display implementation and call BillDisplay on this one. Okay, go to definition to implementation here, and you see here the string content I was talking about. So it's saying, okay, give me the stereotype of the content item you're trying to render, and let's say it's a content, so it will say stereotype is content, and it will then call here, where is it? Handler's value invoke BillDisplay. So it's taking all the content item handler and calling BillDisplay with a context. Okay, and the context here is create item shape is a shape. So we give to the context a content shape, a shape of type content. Okay, and all those content handlers will return other shapes. And the bind placement will actually define the logic for each of those shapes to place themselves in the content. And that's why you have those files, the placements files. So if I take a placement file, placement.info, for instance, the body, body here. Here, the placement says, when you display a parts common body shape, when it will be called in the BillDisplay and you return a parts common body, then in the context of a content item shape, add it to the children named content. So the content shape has a property named content. And inside there will be this parts common body shape. And the parts common metadata shape, which is rendered by the same driver, will go in the property meta of the content shape. So each shape which is rendered by driver will be placed in the parent shape of type content. And then this parent shape is returned to the caller, and the caller is usually this controller. Where is it? Contents, controllers, item, here, item, controller, which calls display, okay? So when you go to the home page, the alias module that Bertrand showed will find, okay, the slash content item is actually the contents slash display slash an ID, like for instance 13, and it will get a content item. And it will get the content item for this ID and call this method, display 13. So the content manager will get the content item in question and return the content item. And here we have content manager.BillDisplay. So it will say, call all the handlers to return shapes for this content item and place them into a content shape, a shape of type content, and render this view. So again, this is a content shape, okay, which will have properties like .content, .meta, and so on. Okay. The term content here is a little tricky because it's the type of the shape and it's also the name of a property. So we have to be careful about what we use. And the view here for the item and method display is this, so it's adding some classes, okay? And it's saying just display model. It says, okay, render the shape. Just render the shape. The view, the MVC view says render the shape. So the render engine will look for the template for the shape. The shape is of type content, okay? So it will look for a file named content. And here is a file named content. This is the shape template. And what this template will render, it says, okay, model is my shape. So render something which is called model.header in the content shape. Then the meta, the one we assign the body metadata to. And then if there is some content in the footer, render the footer, and in the middle, whatever, render what is inside the model.content. So whatever placed shape was assigned to the content zone of our content shape will be rendered here. That's why here, so that's why you see the article tag here. If I look at this thing, this content item, Where is it? Okay. Yes, this one. You see? We have the article tag, and you see in blue it's the whole content item. So the article tag, under we have the header, and then the body. And here we have the metadata. So this article tag is this one. And after the header, we have the model.content, which is displayed. So those properties, which are content zones, so we call them zones because they are sub-shapes of the content shape, they are completely customizable. You could have more than or less than header, meta, content, and footer, and organize all your content items as you wish. It's just a common thing that we define for contents. We want contents to be like this. And that's it for displaying. And that's where the placement is important. Because when you return shapes from drivers, those shapes will be placed into the content shape. Okay? This is important to understand. So this was the demo, how to display a content item. Now I will explain you how the system in Orchard finds out all those shapes from the file system and from the shape methods. So in Orchard there is an interface called iShapeTableProvider, which is responsible for providing shapes, actually for feeding the shape table with some shapes. Shape table being a dictionary of all available shapes and how to render those shapes. So there are two concrete implementations right now, which are the shape template binding strategy, which will look for template files, and the shape attribute binding strategy, which will look for methods with the shape attribute. So it's very easy to understand. If I go to iShapeTableProvider, this one just says you need to implement Discover, okay? And when you implement Discover, you need to feed my shape table builder with what you discover. And the implementations are there. So if I go to shape template binding strategy, you will see that the discover method, which is nowhere. Yes, I'll ask Sipke. If I have questions, don't tell me. I'll ask Sipke. You see here, it's just looking for harvesters, which are subclasses, to look in the file system, you see. So it's looking in file system using harvesters, which are crawlers of folders, and we'll look for CS, HTML, or maybe it's interesting because I've seen some questions like that. So why are the shapes only in views and parts and not everywhere I want? It's just because a harvester here, I shape template harvester, here is looking into those folders, okay? So if you want to add shapes in another folder, just create another iShape template harvester or change this one, or add another one to find some things elsewhere, okay? If you don't like just to views, items, parts, and fields, by the way, you might not know that you could also put items in, shape templates in items. This is here. So that's how it works. It looks for the file system and feeds the shape table builder that's passed in as a parameter with those shapes by saying, okay, it's named this type, and to render it, use the Razor engine. Okay, this is a delegate to say. And by the way, it's also monitoring every file it finds. So if you change them, it will invalidate Orchard and regenerate that. Okay, unless you've disabled it through the configuration. So this is to find the template shapes. And the other implementation, go to implementation, that is useful here is the shape attribute binding strategy. So same thing, it's implementing the discover method. And this time, it will ask Autofact to return all the methods with this attribute. This is a configuration Autofact which was done as a module to return all those methods. And when it finds it, it just says, okay, I found a shape, this is the shape type, and this is this feature. And whenever you want to render it, call this method. Okay? It says call the method to render it. So this is how to provide new custom shapes. And Piotr has implemented one iShapeTableProvider, which will look for shapes into the database. So it will look into the specific record for records, a specific table for records with a template inside, and feed the shape table builder with the content of the record and say it's a Razor engine which has to render it. So you can have shapes in your database. That's a module he did. And I don't see any other way to improve it, but it's completely open, so you can customize it or add new ways of rendering new shapes. This is for iShape table provider. I don't know where I am with the time. I have until 8. It's okay. So shape events are also very important because it lets you extend how shapes are used and what to do with those shapes whenever a shape is used. And everything which is displayed in our shard is a shape. Everything, okay, is a shape. And the only thing which is displayed actually is the layout shape. Okay. The theme engine will just render a layout shape and inject a content in a specific zone, which itself will have parts injected in some zones and so on. So it's a big tree of shapes which is rendered. And at the top of the tree, the root is a layout shape. So with the iShape, there are multiple ways to intercept shape events, 3 different locations. First, with the iShape display event, which lets you intercept anything on any shape. Okay? Then there is a shape metadata, which is defined for in every shape. So it will let you put an event on specific shapes. When you have a shape instance, you can put events on this one. The iShape display event is common to everyone. It's called by the shape factory. So every shape which is created and displayed will be able to register to shape display event. And the last one is shape table provider, which is the one we just saw. And you can register events when those shapes are discovered. So when you discover a shape, you can say, oh, by the way, you discovered a content shape, let's add some events to that. Okay, so it's for typed shapes. You can add some events for specific types of shapes with the iShape table provider. So there are 3 different ways of adding some events. So for the first 2 ones, you have the displaying and displayed events. And for this one, because we get them at the discovery of those shapes, we also have the creating created events for a shape per type, and also you can customize the placement, because when you discover a shape, you could say, oh, you are not placed using an XML file, you are placed using the admin placement that I have defined or something like that. So you can customize the placement method. It's just a method which will define in which parent to place this shape. And then in which order are they called? This is important to know what you want to do with that and what you can do with that. So the displaying first, when you render a page, the displaying event is called for all of them. First the shape display events, then the shape table provider, and then the shape metadata. When all the displaying events are called, what you can do, okay, is set the child content of the metadata property. The metadata property of a shape. This is very important because this is what will be rendered on the screen, okay, in HTML. And this is a property that you can read and write on. And it's nice because you could say, okay, when it's displayed, let's get what will be rendered, like the HTML. Okay? I use it for the shape tracing to show you what has been rendered. But you could say, let's put this value into a cache table. Okay? And then next time you are displaying a shape based on a key, you could say, no, don't render. I set the child content. And if you set the child content, the shape will see that it's not empty and say, oh, it's already there, I don't have to render it. So let's go on and don't execute the rendering mechanism and doing all the queries and rendering that. So with this mechanism, you could have some shape caching very easily. And finally, when the child content is either set or rendered, all the wrappers are also, so a wrapper is a template which is rendered around a shape, and if you have multiple wrappers, they will all wrap themselves. So you can have multiple wrappers on a shape. And the wrappers are defined in the metadata.wrappers property. And those wrappers are also set using events before they are displayed. So in the displaying events, you can define some wrappers. So for instance, when the layout shape is rendered, a wrapper of type document is added to layout. And the document, that's why, actually, let me show you. If we go to the layout.cshtml file, you see that this layout, it just starts at the body. Whatever is contained here is inside the body. But where is the rest of the outside the body defined? It's in the document file. And this thing is not a shape. Okay, it's there, document.cshtml. This thing is not a shape. It's a wrapper. And you see here, it's a wrapper which says render what is called body and render what is called shape, tail, sorry, in the shape that I'm wrapping. Okay? So this thing is a wrapper of the layout. So when the theme engine says render layout, it will generate the HTML and then around that, wrap it with this code. Okay? The document.cshtml file. Yeah, that's it. I will show you how it's done. It's just implementing, where is the layout? Here. It's just implementing a I-shaped table provider to define at the type level that, hey, when you find a layout on the creation, oh, sorry, when it's created, then add a wrapper. Here, oh, it's here, config, okay. When you find it, please add the document as a wrapper for it. That's why the layout is wrapped by the document, okay? If I remove this line, I will just have the body content, not the header, title, and HTML tags, because they are defined in document thing. That's how it works. There is no magic. I think that's it for the shape events, and yeah, and that's how also all the other alternates are defined. For instance, a menu item, when it's on displaying, you see it's using the shape table provider displaying event. It just says on displaying, please add some other alternates. In case you have more specific templates, use them instead of the main template. And this is how you can add alternates dynamically. It doesn't go through the microphone, so it's okay. Last techniques, just for Sipke. Substitution techniques. So alternates, morphing, and relocation. So alternates is a way to define what's the word? I lost the word. I wanted to use it now. I don't have many, that's the issue. No, even in French, I lost the...
That's a very rare occurrence.
I thought, let me drink some wine. And
it doesn't have something to say, very rare.
Okay, let's try to find a definition for that. So it's a way to define specific is better, specific templates, more specific templates than the main shape. For instance, the menu, when a menu shape is created, it will look for a menu.cshtml template or a menu method, okay? And what we say here is, wait, you are displaying a shape name of type menu, wait, give me your shape, and oh, I will access your property name menu name because you are dynamic, I can access a menu name. And I know you are menu, so I know you have a menu name. And by the way, because you have a menu name main, for instance, I will add a class to you of like name menu dash the menu name and also menu. So whenever a menu will be rendered, okay, not here, here. So whenever a menu is rendered, that's why you will find here, you see UL class menu and menu dash main menu because the name of my main menu is main menu. So it adds two classes. And this is from here, from this displaying event, adding two classes to the shape. And by the way, if there is a file named menu dash the name of the menu with a specific encoding because the double underscore is converted to the file system dash and the simple underscore to the file system dot. So if you find a file named menu dash main menu, use it instead of the template menu. Okay? So this is what alternates are, a way to define more specific templates for a shape. So if I don't have this shape type, menu dash main menu, it will use the menu shape type. Otherwise, it will use this one. And it's very easy to understand. Well, that's what also the shape tracing is doing. It's looking at all the alternates and will let you clone the main template to a more specialized one that you can customize for a specific case, like for one menu. Okay? Alternates. And now you know how to add classes to different shapes by code, because code is important. Well, the goal is you don't have to do that, and we have to provide all the necessary classes. And you could override this behavior by creating your old template called menu, and it will be taken by your theme instead of the main definition. So this is alternates. These are alternates. Then I want to talk about shape morphing, a very nice technique. So the idea of shape morphing is when you display a shape like menu, before rendering it, you change its type. And after that, our chart will think, we not know that it's a menu that to render, it's something else. So you don't provide an alternate, you are changing its type. You are morphing it to something else. So you are reusing the same model, but faking it to another type. So when it will look for a template, it will look for the template of this new type. So example, there are two usage of this, the menu item link and the pager link. I have a good examples in the template here. Let me show you. Where is it? I think it's menu item. It's menu item. So menu item dot CSHTML. Yes, this one. Yes, here, you see, morphing the shape. Perfect. So the idea is when a menu item is rendered, so a menu item is the sub-shape of a menu. A menu has sub-shapes of menu items, which themselves have sub-menu items. So when a menu item is rendered, it will look for a property selected to add a class current, then look for any sub-items and say, oh, it has sub-items, so let's add a class drop-down. So you can customize the menu item with a drop-down class. And then the menu item will be converted to a menu item link type. And at this point, the display will also use the menu item link shape template. And I don't know why I did that. No, yes, because it's too late. Because it already found it's a menu item. It's using the alternate for this menu item. But now I want to render something else. But not something else. I want to render this. Yes, that's it, alternates. Yes, no, I'm also lost. I made this, so I know I can understand that, okay? I'm able to, I did that. So, yes, that's related to alternates. So the idea is that, okay, I found a menu item. I render what I need, but now I want to be rendered again using a more dedicated thing, a specialized thing, based on alternates. Because I will say the type, okay, this is there, this is it, okay. I'm there. Where is it? Type, display. Yeah, here, look at that. I'm currently displaying a menu item, and I will call again display on the same shape. If I didn't change the type here, okay, if it was not there, if this thing was not there, calling display on the same thing again will call the same template, because if it found it once, it will find it again and again and again. But no, before, we are saying no, morph it to a menu item link and display it again. And it will look for a dedicated template for menu item link. And it happens that there are some alternates for menu item link. And we are just saying when you display a menu item link, add the name of the menu as an alternate first, and also add the content type of the menu item link. Content type being content item link, shape link, query link, custom link, taxonomy link, all the links you can have in the navigation. So you can have custom templates for each of those menu item types. Okay? So this way, we can have a common implementation for a template, whatever the menu item type is. For all of them, we will define the current and the drop-down classes, whatever you define for your template for each of those specific type of menu item. So when we render a menu item, we add those properties, and then after that, when for any of them we have defined those properties, we want custom behaviors. So it's a way to have a common behaviors for every menu item types, and after we morph them into menu item link to be able to add alternates and let those alternates render these menu item links specifically, okay, using the same model. So yeah, that's the goal. And it's the same with pagers. Pagers also using uses the same technique. It's rendering a page number, or it's defining the number and all the properties that all pagers need, and then it will morph to a pager link based on the current list it's displaying. So you can have custom pager properties also for each of your lists. So that's morphing. Will you fire me? It's okay, I have a last thing to show. This is called shape relocation. This is a common invention between Bertrand and Paul Sarkey, a UK guy, which is not here, who is not here today. Shape relocation. I gave a name to your thing. Okay, you know what shape relocation is? No, but you are the co-inventor of this technique. And and well, actually, he invented something. Paul Sarkey improved it, and I made it a concept and asked him to blog about. So now it's his co-invention with Paul Sarkey, because he published first. The first to publish is in the inventor. That's it. Yeah. So the idea is that when you have a template for a custom type, let's say news, because I have a news running. So I will create a news. Okay. A news file. First, I won't create it. I will call it news underscore, so it won't find it. Let me show you how a news is displayed. So if I go to news, I should have a news-1. Yes. You see it's displaying the title part because it's positioned first, then the metadata, then the content, the properties. That's it. That's all the shapes which are rendered for a news. Now I want to customize it. Okay, so I will create a news file. So it will be taken instead of the content.cshtml file, which injects all those zones and those shapes into those zones. I create a news.cshtml, which is an alternate of the content shape. And it will take this one. So if I edit this and I say foo, it will take this file instead of the content.cshtml. And it just renders foo. News.cshtml. It should work. It's news. Sipke? Okay. Someone else? Yes! Wow. Stupid. Yeah, that's content-news. Oh, thank you. Sipke, I'm sad. Content-news. Why didn't? Yeah, because it's an alternate content __ new. Boom. Okay, thank you. I'll give you a KitKat. A cookie, and there is no more KitKat. So cookie, okay? But what's bad here is that I want to render the metadata which was there before. The nice thing, I don't want to override everything. I want to reuse some of the parts which were there. Okay? So how do I do that? How do I access back all those parts which were in the content? So it's the same shape, so technically I could do model.content and do a display on that. Okay, because content is a property of my content shape, which I'm overriding the template for, and content is a set of shapes. So let's see what happens here. Nothing. It's playing with me. Maybe because there is nothing in the content zone. Okay. No, there is nothing. Maybe there is something in meta.
You are editing the wrong file.
Oh, thank you. Yeah. You're too good. You get a cookie too. I'm too generous. You don't get a cookie. Yes, there is something in the content which is a field. Okay, so now I can reuse some of the parts, but it's not actually the parts, it's actually the zones where the parts were. But I want specifically some of the shapes which were rendered in those things, like the one called, what is it called? It's called body metadata. Okay, let's see what it's called. It's called, do I have a body? I have a body, but it's nothing, it's the text here. There is one called title. So in the header here, you see here, in the header, there is the title part. And this one is rendered here. So if I go to the title module, where is it? Here, the title module will render a parts title shape, okay, which will be placed in parts title shape will be placed when I am in mode summary in the header at position 5. You see in the header, that's why here, when I say render the zone header, I see the title. Let's say I just want the title. There is no way for me to get just the title. I could enumerate on items and then look by a name, but it's bad. So the technique is shape relocation. How to do that? You go to your theme, here, where is my theme? Here, placement. You open the placement for your theme, if it wants. Use Notepad, because Visual Studio doesn't want. And here you will take what placement was defined by default for title, and I will say, when I'm displaying news, okay, I can do that. In mode whatever, or in mode, here I'm in mode detail actually. Yes, I'm in a detail. I want to place the parts title, this one actually, this is what this one. Okay, this is this one. The display type detail, parts title, header 5. I want to display this one not in the zone header of the content, but in the zone that I will call my title. At position 5, it's okay, or whatever, that doesn't matter, it's the only one there. And which is nice there now is that I have a zone called my title that will only have the title part, the parts title shape. So I can say here, my title, render the zone my title, where I only injected the parts title. And then I can reuse only this title, okay, and not anything which was also in the header. So that this is part relocation. So now you can customize your content types with custom templates, but still reuse some parts which are defined by other modules. Okay? So that's parts relocation. And this is very important if you want to do theming. Yeah, that's it. Questions?
Any questions on shapes? He solved it all.
It must be
1
very
hour.
late. 1 hour?
Something like that, less than an hour.
It needed that.
It needed that.
Yes. Oh, it's there. This is the one in the theme. I'm just saying, if you're a news and you're displaying detail, the parts title, put it in my title property of the content shape. Or foo or whatever, okay? It's just you are placing it in a new zone to isolate it from all the other ones and pick that zone which will only contain this one. So you're done. And the rest is still rendered in those other zones. So you could say, if you want to spare the rendering, well, all the other zones, if they are not used, they won't be rendered, because the render is called, when I call display on the content, it will call display on all the subcontents. So if you don't display the zone, it won't be displayed anyhow. Shape relocation.
Maybe it's nice to add that because this is a content shape, that you can access the content item and access the parts directly.
No, you can't. You can access the properties directly from the content item, but here I want to reuse the parts.
I understand, but maybe because you mentioned theming, sometimes you want to access the parts and the properties of those parts directly.
The parts or the properties of the content item?
Yeah, for example, you have a content item with.
I was messing up with shapes and parts. Yes, you are right. The parts. So yeah, what he's mentioning is that the obvious way of overriding a shape here for a content item or content item shape is to do something like model.content_item, because every time you have a content shape, there is a property named content item. Same thing, every time you have a content part shape from a driver, it will have a property named content part with the part itself. So here you could say this var content item. Well, you can render it directly like that. Model.content_item, for instance, dot the part, for instance, here, title part like this? Yeah. Dot the property of the title part. And if you don't know, title part has a property named title, so you can say it like that. So here it will take just the title of the title part of my content item. Okay, I save, I display, and I have news one here as a text, and this is rendered. I wanted to show the relocation because you get the HTML from the original part. And you can also override it everywhere to use a common template. But yes, usually what I do is this thing. But sometimes you want to reuse how it's rendered. For instance, the taxonomy, you want to reuse the taxonomy terms, but you want to customize just a part of it. You place the taxonomy list into a zone, and you render the zone.
Hey, Seb. So one of the things that I've found useful is within the placement.info file, being able to specify alternates.
Yeah.
Might be worth showing that.
This is actually shape morphing too. This is I know. Who cares that you know? Yeah, okay. Yeah, so the idea is that here in the part title, you can define where to place it, but there are also other properties like alternate. I made it, so I know where to find it, but its placement alternates, I think, equals, for instance, fofo. And what it will do, it's when it places it, it will say, hey, don't use the shape you know, use the fofo shape. Yeah, but yeah, this is another technique to alternate. Okay, alternate. And there are some other things. What are they? There is something like URL, I think, or maybe it's here. Yes, here in URL you could say, for instance, /blogs. Yeah. This is very advanced scenario, and I'm not proud of it. Path. Okay, thank you. You should write some document. It's on the documentation. Yeah, it's in the doc.
That is actually documented.
But it's useless. So it's useless.
Could you go back to the almost the beginning? There was one question I was always wondering why we have to specify as a string the shape name and also on shape helper
it's very
dot the same thing. Why?
You mean the driver? No, it's the same because you put the same, but you can put different things. So the idea is that, so the question is why in the shape helper we do dot parse title and also we have content shape parse title. That's it. Why two strings is the same information? It's two different things. This is a key that will be used for the placement, and this is the shape type. So if I call it foobar, it will look for the placement. I lost my placement here. foobar. Okay? So this is the key of the placement. That's it. It's the key of the shape inside a dictionary of shapes. That's just. But the shape type is parts title.
Why would you do that? I mean, why would you need two different?
There is a reason that I don't know, but there is a reason. Everything has a reason here. Some clever guys made this pen for a reason. Okay? If it had to be more simpler, it would have been done simpler. Maybe there's a reason. Maybe
The reason for that is, if you look, it's a shape factory. Sorry?
Yeah, so okay.
Yeah, so it's a shape factory, right? So it's not being invoked directly. As soon as you invoke display, there are 3 lambdas there. So when the shape key
is right. It's right.
Yeah.
He said because this one is delayed, because it might never be called. Okay, that's what you're saying?
Yeah.
Okay, he said it first. You lose. So you can write a documentation for that. It's a GitHub, okay? It's a kind of wiki. You write something, you commit, and it's on the website directly. Thank you. And if you didn't get it, you ask Bertrand. If we take the pull request, if it's well written in Markdown and everything, with please can you take my pull request? And
Any more questions? Thank you very much, Sebastien.
welcome.